even though the specific example is the Cathy Newman Jordan Peterson interview, it's not specific to Cathy Newman. I think the fact that that interview has resonated with so many people, that it's been so popular, shows that actually something archetypal was going on in that interaction. Absolutely. And I think as well, why it's gone viral is a lot of people watching it recognize those dynamics. They're like, I've been in conversations like that. Yeah. I've been in this conversation where nothing I say works, where nothing I say gets through. Yeah. So there's something sort of fundamental about the masculine-feminine dynamic that's going on in there. What do you think that is?
I think Jordan Peterson, he's every man. Cathy Newman, she's every woman. I can tap into that rage like this. I know it in myself. And women that say they don't, they're just denying it, because it is in the collective. So in that sense, it just highlighted what's there. It's wonderful, because here we really get to look at, why is this so important? Why is it so important to listen to a thinker like Jordan Peterson and take it seriously and say, what can we do with it? It's just so obvious that it's needed, because if this is where we are, if this is where society and culture is, if this is the ability to have an intelligent conversation, then we are in trouble.
In the interview that I did with Jordan Peterson, he said that the animus-possessed woman, which is the woman who's sort of in her masculine side as a kind of defense for the feminine side, sees every man, or project onto every man, the patriarchy, the tyrannical king. And the way out of that is to see it from a Jungian perspective, that the masculine archetype has both sides. The masculine archetype is both the tyrannical, senile king and the benevolent father at the same time. And so they're multi-layered, and you can see either side in any man. Yeah. But the animus-possessed woman only sees one side. And that is the patriarchy, that is a tyrannical system, that is something that just needs to be destroyed. Yeah. Does that make a lot of sense to you?
I feel that's precisely what's going on. It's this blind projection that makes every man in situation, it makes it into an image. So and that image is where all the rage can go. So I would absolutely agree with that. But another thing I want to say is that rage that is just waiting for an outlet also is important information in the sense that it needs to be heard, it needs to be acknowledged, and it is also there because women haven't found a way to be in our power, which is not necessarily the way of the mind and the way of having an intellectual conversation about something. It's about coming back to the body, and it's about coming back to feeling the energy of what's going on and really trusting that we know in our body a deep truth that cannot necessarily be met or acknowledged in an intellectual conversation. And because women have not been able to articulate that deep truth, that deep wisdom, that deep power, that's also where the rage comes, because we know that deep down there's something that hasn't been seen and acknowledged yet by men, and we're so angry about that, but we just forget that we have to start with ourselves and to say, okay, I feel something is going on here. How can we address this in an intelligent way that is not just pure philosophy and it's not just a pure intellectual conversation, but it's in touch with what's real, it's in touch with life, it's in touch with co-creating evolution, co-creating consciousness. And we can't do that only in an intellectual conversation where we're just arguing against each other's shadows. It's not real.
It's disembodied. It's
completely,
it's just an ideological conflict.
Yeah.
That reminds me of something that I've heard before, that men test ideas and women test men. And there's some truth in that from what you're saying. It's like, because women know on a deeper level than men. And women know when men are out of alignment on a much more deeper level than men often do. Yeah. And so there is something about women's embodied way of knowing, and a genuine. It's essential for women to test men. It's like, so how aligned are you? And that, I think, is what is playing out on the wider culture. The excesses of feminism, you could say, are men being tested on an epic cultural level to show up, to grow up, to acknowledge our shadows and to be present. And that is maybe, that's the evolutionary step that we need to see, but then also, like you're saying, women need to acknowledge their shadows as well.
But I think that was playing out perfectly in the interview, in the sense that Cathy, she just got more and more angry. And the reason why, what was missing out was the masculine being present with her and feeling her. Instead of just meeting her with the mind, because that's going to feel overpowering if you feel, if you're in your emotions and in your body. Instead of being really present and say, I feel your rage. I understand it. So that's where we can start moving on, because the feminine will feel seen, she will feel respected in that embodied truth, because yes, women have something to be enraged about, for sure. And we need that to become real and not to just become a power battle. So yes, women test men to call them into presence and embodiment. And just an intellectual conversation is not enough. It's just going to keep stirring up the rage. So we need to find a way to have that conversation where both the body, the deeper wisdom, the deeper intelligence, and the mind is there present on both sides. So that's what I mean about having an intelligent conversation. It's not just a conversation of the mind, it's a conversation about what's real, what's aligned with life. And that's a whole different conversation. It's a different way of communicating.
So that's what Jordan Peterson could have done better in that interview, is just to have said, I can feel where you're coming from.
I think that could have changed the whole energy, the whole dynamic, and it could have moved it forward. But it's impossible to move it forward when we're both in battle mode. So yes.